Hi, this is Michael Buffer, and welcome to the BoxHard Podcast.
Hello, everyone. This is Mikey Garcia.
Yo, it's your boy, the odd guy himself, Malik King Scott.
Hi, I'm Charlie Edwards.
This is Fast Eddie Chambers, and you're listening to the BoxHard Podcast with my main man, Joey Coastman.
Hello everybody and welcome to episode 123 of the BoxHard Podcast. I'm your host Joey Coastman. I'm joined as always by Mr. Ayaz Sumra. Ayaz, how you doing?
I'm good, Joey. Yourself?
Very good, my friend, very good. This, of course, episode 123, episode 123. We're going to dive straight into the review part of the show. Of course, there's lots of things to go over from last weekend. I'm going to start over on the Friday. This card actually took place at the York Hall. Obviously, it was a Haymaker Ring Star card. It was good to see Richard Schaefer there in attendance. Obviously, I think that's the second Haymaker Ring Star fight card, but he wasn't at the first one. It was good to see him there. On this bill, we had Sam Gilley moved to 4-0. It was a knockout win for him against Daniel Bazzo. Daniel Bazzo, you know, he was a guy coming in there with a losing record, but he did well. Sam Gilley really impressed me, showed the killer instinct. His corner was screaming at him to calm down when he had his man hurt. He wasn't listening to none of it. He just jumped straight in there. You know, he went a little bit wild, but we're gonna let him get away with that. He really showed his killer instinct there. Really impressed me. Mo Garib was also on the bill. He had quite a stern test in just his second outing, to be honest. We also got to see quite a bit of flashiness from him. I like what I see with Garib. He's also he also has a very, very vocal fan base that was making a lot of noise there. It was just the first fight, and the noise was unbelievable for Mo Garib. He's now 2-0. That was a points win there against Jamie Spate, a man that we all know pretty well. Also, Jack Newham, he fought on the bill. He took on Jan Korek, who was 1-8 going in. Again, a bit of a showcase card, this one in its entirety. Jack Newham moved to 3-0. It was a points win for him. He banked 4 important rounds, where I think that, you know, he would have learned quite a bit in those 4 rounds. It was a good fight, that one. Also, a fighter that I'm getting to like quite well now, a guy called Anesu Twala. He moved to 4-0. It was a 4-round points win against Reese Saunders. You know, he battered his opponent. To be completely honest, he didn't really need to get out of first or second gear. You know, his opponent had a really bloodied face and stuff like that. The scorecards was 40-37 in favour of Twala. So yeah, he goes the distance there. 4 wins for him now, and all 4 have gone to points, but he actually hits harder than what you'd believe. Also on this bill, we saw a win from Dean Richardson. He moved to 6-0. Linus Udofia, he moved to 7-0, a win against William Warburton, a points win there. Willie Hutchinson, that was a great fight. He took on Eric Maconzo. Now, Maconzo certainly turned up for this one. He really, really was. It was a wide points win in the end, because I think there were 2 knockdowns in favour, or maybe, I think it was 2 knockdowns in favour, of course, of Willie Hutchinson. But I tell you what, he certainly didn't have it all his own way. His first 2 pro fights, he's had knockouts in the second round. Well, this one went 6 rounds. Again, a points win, 60-52 there for Willie Hutchinson, but he got caught quite a lot. There was a few really, really worrying moments. It made for a great fight, and to be honest, it was fight of the night in York Hall. As I said many, many times, in York Hall, any given night you go there's always an epic fight, and that one came closest to it. I mean, he won every round, but, you know, it was a good fight while it lasted. Also on this bill, we saw a guy called Jermaine Camaro. He was 6-1 going in. He took on Freddie Kiewit, who I didn't really know too much about. And Camaro was the Southern Area champion, but his belt wasn't on the line. He was a late replacement, to be completely honest. And he was very slick, very skillful boxer, but he seemed like he didn't have the biggest punch on him. He took on Freddie Kiwitt. As I said, he actually lost on points. Freddie Kiwitt managed to get a points win over 8 rounds in his favour. Yeah, good stuff there for Freddie Kiwitt. He showed me quite a lot, to be honest. I mean, he's a good-looking fighter. He's got a pretty face. He's one of those guys where you think, can he really fight? And I think he showed us that he can really fight. Really good timing. He wasn't staying in the pocket and trading for too long, even though I think he probably could have got away with it, to be honest, against this guy here. He was very awkward. He was showing he was very hard to hit, and to do all of that against a guy who was a last-minute opponent change kind of thing, I think that was quite impressive from Freddie Kiwitt. He's now 13-2, and the main event on this one, of course, the Olympic silver medalist from Rio 2016, Joe Joyce. He moved to 2-0. It was a KO in the very first round against Rudolf Jozic, who was 4-1 going in, now 4-2. No great shakes, Rudolf Jozic, but what I will say, I'm not quite sure that the home viewers know about this, but they made him stand up on the stage, on that beautiful stage. That little entrance thing that they had set up looked absolutely gorgeous, but he was standing there waiting for his music to come on for, no joke, about 10 minutes at least, while they were showing all these promos and David Haye was being interviewed. And I could imagine his legs were probably quite tired, so I think he wanted to go down and have a little rest, and I think he did that at the first opportunity, to be honest. I don't even think the punch landed properly. It seemed like it kind of landed on the guy's shoulder. But anyways, it was what it was. He wasn't going to beat Joe Joyce. He gets out again. He gets another win on his slate there, Joe Joyce. And like I say, I want to see him now take on somebody quite gritty, more like the kind of Ian Lewison level, and perhaps beyond that, in his third fight, which is actually set to happen on the Haye Bellew undercard. Obviously, the press conference for that happened earlier this week. Moving over now to the Grand Sierra Resort and Casino. This one happened in Nevada, USA. This one was shown on Box Nation. Couple fights to mention on this bill, by the way. Heavyweight Brian Jennings, he moved to 22-2. It was a TKO in round 3 for him. A good win there against Akror Muralimov. Muralimov was down twice in the first round, once in the second round, and twice in the third and final round. So quite destructive performance there from Brian Jennings. I didn't see it though, it wasn't televised. Shakur Stevenson moved to 5-0. It was a points win over 8 rounds against Juan Tapia, who was 8-1. Decent little win there for Shakur Stevenson. He looked good doing it. He really cruised to that 8-round points win. Looked quite impressive as well. I mean, he does a lot of little things that are quite not so eye-catching, but smart stuff. I really like his ring IQ. Also on this bill, Egidus Kavalauskas, again, I think they call him Aegis. I'm going to just call him Aegis. Anyway, he moved to 19-0. He defended successfully his NABF welterweight title against David Avanesian, the former world champion. It was a TKO in round 6. David Avanesian, really, really nice guy. The game plan, by the way, this is confirmed, was that they were going to really try and take off after about 6 rounds or something like that. But he seemed to get caught in that 6th round, and that was it. So the game plan was to start off slow, and to be honest, at the point of the stoppage, he was very much in that fight, Avanesian. But I'm quite liking the look of Aegis here, Kavalauskas. I really like the look of him. 19-0, and boy oh boy can he punch. Main event here, Raimundo Beltran finally picks up a world title. It was the vacant WBO World Lightweight title before the bout. After the bout, it belonged to Raimundo Beltran. He slept with the belt. There's a lovely photo of him going around Twitter with it wrapped around his chest, and he's out cold in some kind of hotel bed. Anyway, he went to 35 wins with 7 losses and 1 draw. It was a unanimous decision win over 12 rounds against Paulus Moses, who was 40-3. That fight itself, Raimundo Beltran started really well. Moses came on strong in like round 3. He was cutting Beltran's face up, to be honest. He really went on to put some work in Moses. And Beltran was being tagged repeatedly, and it made the fight, very close. But Beltran came on strong in that later part of the fight. I think that maybe the body shots played a part in Moses slowing down. He seemed to tire and slow down in the later part of the fight. And my gut feeling was that it was probably about 8-4 in favour of Beltran, but the right man definitely won the fight. And to be honest, the fight was much better than the scorecards would have said so, because the scorecards were very, very wide, to be honest, and they didn't really tell the story of a good fight, which it certainly was for many of those rounds and pretty much the whole fight. But yeah, credit to Raimundo Beltran. If anybody deserves to be a world champion. It's him. He's been, served up some hard luck before. And once again, he was fighting for his green card. They need to just keep putting his green card on the line in every fight because he's more and more impressive the more times they put his green card on the line. It's a bizarre situation. But all the very best to Raimundo Beltran now, 35-7 with one draw. Moving over now to the arena in Ludwigsburg in Baden-Württemberg, Germany. I think I did quite well there, to be honest. On this bill, one fight to mention, Vincent Feigenbutz. He moved to 28 wins. He's only got 2 losses. He defended. I don't think the title was vacant, but anyway, the belt that was on the line was the IBF Intercontinental Super Middleweight title. It was a win here for Feigenbutz over Rhino Liebenberg, who was 18-5. I've never heard of him, to be honest. It was a TKO in round 6 for Feigenbutz. Moving over now to Ireland, one fight over there. The cruiserweight now, Mike Perez, he picked up a TKO in round 1. A really destructive comeback after bailing out of the World Boxing Super Series cruiserweight tournament. He's now 23-3 with one draw. Moving over now to Manchester Arena in Lancashire. This one was certainly the big one of the weekend. On the undercard, Sebastian Eubank. I know he was going a little bit, he was having a little bit of a moan on Twitter because they wouldn't televise his fight because his brother, Chris Eubank Jr, was on the bill. I admire the WBSS, the World Boxing Super Series, for kind of standing by their normal rules and not bending them for anybody, so credit to them. But Sebastian Eubank managed to win his debut. He's now 1-0. It was a points win over 4 rounds against a guy who was 2-8 called Kamil Kaluksic. Kaluksic was also down in the 3rd round, so a points win there for Seb Eubank. Looking forward to see if he's any good. Simon Vallily, 12-1. He actually ended up fighting Blaise Menduo, who's 4-8. Simon Vallily, for whatever reason, I don't think his opponent was able to fight his original opponent. I think the fight fell through at the last minute, so hard luck there for Simon Vallily, but he picked up a TKO in the 4th and final round against Blaise Menduo. Who else was on this bill? Zach Parker, a guy that I really, really like the look of. He absolutely obliterated Luke Blackledge, as we all know, in the 1st round. Well, he went to the 2nd round this time against a guy called Adesat Rodriguez, who was 16-6 with 2 draws. Really destructive, Zach Parker. Boy, oh boy, he's only young, the guy. And, they're already saying that he's being quite heavily avoided by some of the top guys at that weight. He's a 168 fighter, and like I say, he's young, and boy oh boy, he's got such a bright future. He's with the Sauerlands, as I've said a couple of times. I really think that they've nicked one of our gems there. Also on this bill, Tommy Langford really impressed me against Jack Armfield. Tommy Langford, 19-1, successfully defended his British middleweight title over 12 rounds against Jack Armfield. It was a unanimous decision win for Tommy Langford. Tommy Langford fought really aggressively from the get-go. It really surprised me. I mean, both men in this fight, they met in the centre of the ring. It was quite a fast-paced fight, which I found quite surprising also. And Langford looked really good when he was trading. Many of the early rounds were really quite close and difficult to score, but as the fight went on, though, the champion, obviously Tommy Langford, he really pulled away, and this becomes, to be honest, probably his most significant win of his career this far, in my opinion, because Armfield's got quite a few good wins on his resume, and he had some great momentum going into that one, but Langford ended up winning fairly comfortably at the very end. What I just want to say, I just want to quickly backtrack also. I'd really like to see Zach Parker take on Rocky Fielding, but I know that fight probably won't happen because Rocky Fielding vacated the British title last week, but maybe Jamie Cox against Zach Parker. I think that would be a great fight. Moving up the bill once again, Ryan Walsh defending his British featherweight title against Isaac Lowe. Ryan Walsh 22-2 with 1 draw. Isaac Lowe 14-0 with 2 draws. It ended up being a split draw over 12 rounds. Now, this fight here, I think Isaac Lowe started really fast. He was bouncing around sometimes a little bit too much on his feet. He wasn't being hit, but as the fight went on, he seemed to slow down a bit. And like I say, when you're bouncing on your feet a lot, it really tires you out. Sometimes you don't really need to be doing that. Richie Woodall had had Isaac Lowe 2 rounds up with 4 rounds to go, and then he actually gave rounds 9, 10 and 11 to Walsh, meaning that Lowe could only get a draw if he won the final round. I think as the fight went on, Isaac Lowe was probably expected to tire. He's also, not many people know this, but he's also got a full-time job, Isaac Lowe. It's amazing that he's able to be as good as what he is. Imagine if he was a full-time boxer. He'd be unbelievable. The fight was a really hard fight to score, but I think the 12th round was a really, 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 really good round, and it really ended what had been a really good fight. I said really so many times there. But yeah, it was a draw, and one thing that is good that comes out of this in favour of Isaac Lowe is that he still remains undefeated. He's now 14-0 with 3 draws, but these draws are beginning to annoy him. I know that for sure. Tyson Fury, a good friend of his, he certainly thought he won the fight, but it was what it was. It was certainly a close fight, this one. Also, the main event here, of course, George Groves, 27-3, defending his WBA World Super Middleweight title. In the other corner, Chris Eubank Jr, 26-1, defending his IBO World Super Middleweight title. Eubank was cut above the right eye when the heads clashed in the 3rd round. It seemed to be a really, quite a bad cut, and I think that Chris Sanagar did really quite well with the cut in the corner. It continued to flow the blood, really, the whole fight, but I think Sanagar did really well with it. But, boy oh boy, what a fight, Ayaz. I'm going to let you start with it. It was a cracker of a fight.
What a crack of a fight it was. What can I say? Before the build-up of the fight, Eubank Jr. was saying, sleep tight with your belt. You've only got a few days left. It's a middleweight moving up to super middleweight. George Groves was using that jab. George Groves hurt him a few times. From the head clash, Chris Eubank Jr. was busted up from the whole fight. George Groves boxed with an excellent game plan. A lot of people, boxing people, they were saying how much has he got left in the tank. And to be honest, he's proved a lot of people wrong. They said that after the 2 Carl Froch fights and after the 2 Carl Froch lost and the Badu Jock lost, you can see this partnership with him and Shane McGuigan. It's very good. And obviously, Groves was winning the fight. I think, personally, when Eubank Jr. fell to the ground, I think George Groves dropped him. Chris Eubank Jr. in the last 3 rounds, that's when he tried to go for the pedal, hit the gas. But in the 12th round, you can see when you saw George Groves' shoulder pop out, and even Eubank Jr. still couldn't go for it, yeah? And George Groves is still hitting him. But what can I say? Well done, George Groves. He's into the final. And I think, personally, he's going to win the tournament. And I think he beats Callum Smith if Callum Smith wins.
Yeah, I mean, it was a really, really good fight. I actually had the first 2 rounds to George Groves. I think he started really well. And then after that, I actually gave the 3rd and 4th to Chris Eubank Jr. So I actually had it level after 4. And then I actually gave the 5th a 10-10. So I had it level after 5. That is where I really saw Groves pull away. So going into that 6th round and the 6th, 7th, 8th, all the rest of those rounds there, I was expecting Eubank to kind of pull away in the second half of the fight. And I don't mean that he would win the fight. I just mean that I thought he'd probably be the fresher guy. I thought he'd probably win a few rounds, but it seemed to be the complete opposite to that. Groves seemed to get better as the fight went on, in my opinion. Maybe he was a little bit nervous. What I do want to say, though, is Groves, when he comes out walking to the ring and he comes out to that Prodigy tune, he really gets my blood flowing, really gets my blood pumping, and just gives me goosebumps because he comes surging into that ring, absolutely almost like sprinting into that ring to that crazy music and the bashing of different instruments, and I love that. When he did that, I almost did a cartwheel in my living room. It was unbelievable. He just got me so excited. When he got in the ring, like I say, maybe the nerves got to him a little bit early. I don't think that the nerves got to Eubank Jr. A lot of people were saying that. I think that the occasion didn't really get to him. I just think that's what he is. So yeah, going into the 6th round, I gave Groves the 6th round. The 7th round, I was being quite lenient with Eubank. I gave it a 10-10, and then I literally gave Groves the 8th, 9th, 10th, and 11th, and that was where Eubank really did need a knockout. And then in the 12th round, obviously, as you mentioned, also Ayaz, George Groves dislocated his shoulder in that 12th round, as we think it was a dislocated shoulder. There's been no proper clarification, but in the second half of that 12th round, George Groves could not move his left arm at all. As you said there, obviously, he dislocated his shoulder. He could not move his left arm at all. And he only had his right to throw back with and defend with. And Chris Eubank Jr., maybe he smelt a bit of blood, I don't know, but he went for the kill. And I've had some people coming at me on Twitter saying that I'm delusional and stuff like that, but there was a point in that 12th round where Shane McGuigan was screaming at George Groves to hold or whatever, something like that. And he wasn't doing it because obviously, he only had one arm. And Chris Eubank Jr. was absolutely swarming him. He was all over him. And George Groves was not firing back. And I was getting quite worried because I thought that one or two landed punches or one or two of those crazy eye-catching flurry of punches that Eubank's famous for, if he does this, I think that the referee could have had a chance to stop the fight. I'm not saying it would have been the right call. I'm just saying that there was a little moment in there. I'm not saying that Eubank was in the fight. Eubank needed a knockout. He got beaten quite comprehensively. But what I will say is there was a few seconds where I was extremely worried in that 12th round that Eubank was going to get a stoppage. Not because he was going to knock Groves out and knock him unconscious, but there was a moment where he was jumping all over him. Groves was not firing back. He was not reacting. He was on the ropes and he was being punched on the ropes quite a lot. Whether the shots were landing clean or not, it looked to be a worrying few seconds there for George Groves. And if there was, another 30 seconds in the round, we could be saying all sorts of different things. And I know that woulda, coulda, shoulda doesn't really come into it, but there was a moment there. That is all I will say. There was a moment there. Some people think I'm crazy. And do you know what? There's a lot of people that have come out the woodwork now, and it's like they hate Eubank so bad that they're making out that Groves won a shutout decision. Groves fought excellently well, okay? And I wanted Groves to win, and Ayaz predicted Groves would win, and, I wanted him to win, but it wasn't like a complete shutout. There was, I had it at the end of it all. I had it Groves with 117 and Eubank 113. So 117 to 113. So there was 4 points in it for me. Groves should have perhaps had one or two knockdowns, but they weren't called. And like I said, there was a few close rounds, and it seems like all of those close rounds, everybody just wants to give to Groves because of all the hate for Eubank. It was a closer fight than I believe a lot of the Twitter fans had it. The judges probably had it. I think one or two of them had it way too close. But for me, I had Groves by 4 points, and I think Barry McGuigan said he had Groves by 4 points as well. So my scorecard was quite accurate, but some people weren't liking what I had to say on Twitter. But it is what it is. I love these fights that everybody gets right into and has their arguments with for and against. It is what it is. That is boxing. It's a fantastically entertaining and enthralling sport at times, and this was one of the fights that brings out the best of it. But yeah, in the end, quite a dominant points win for George Groves. I predicted incorrectly here. I thought Eubank would get the stoppage. Ayaz went with George Groves to win on points. You got that one right. And also on the undercard, I should have said, I predicted Isaac Lowe to win on points. So did Ayaz, and the listeners had Walsh to win on points. Obviously, that contest was a draw, so no points for that one. And the listeners also went with Groves to win on points. So 2 points up so far for the listeners. 1 point up for you and 1 point for the listeners. 2 points together, of course. So I'm absolutely hating the prediction league at the moment, because all 5 contests that I predicted last week, all 5 of them I was not all of them, but most of them I was very confident for, and I've not got a single one right. So again, yourself, Ayaz, and the listeners really, really running away with it now. Moving over now to the Mandalay Bay Hotel and Casino over in Las Vegas, Nevada. A couple fights to mention on this bill especially. Edwin Rodriguez moved to win number 30. He's got 2 losses also. It was a unanimous decision win over 10 rounds against Lionel Thompson. Yordenis Ugas, he moved to 21-3. It was a TKO in round 7 against Ray Robinson, who was 24-2, now 24-3. Robinson was down in the very first round and also in the 7th and final round, and he was also deducted a point at the end of round 4 for hitting Ugas after the bell. Moving up this bill once again, I managed to stream this fight. I managed to get my stream right just for this fight here, and the main event. But this one here, David Benavidez, 19-0, defending his WBC World Super Middleweight title against Ronald Gavril. Ronald Gavril, 18-2, now 18-3, and Benavidez is now 20-0. It was, of course, a rematch. The first fight was a pretty good one. Obviously, the only real event that was kind of, of note in the first one was that Benavidez got knocked down in the final round. Well, here, Benavidez looked absolutely brilliant in the second part of the fight. He certainly didn't tire at all. But what I will say is Ronald Gavril is a tough guy. I think he gives anybody problems really at the super middleweight division. Benavidez was just extremely dominant. It was a shutout on my card for him. He pretty much won everything. There was a little moment in there where the corner of Ronald Gavril looked like they were going to try and pull him out at one point. The referee asked Gavril to show him something. To be honest, he didn't really show him much. There was one round where he thought he probably could have got a 10-10 round, to be honest. It's not like he won the round, but, he's got a lot of heart, Ronald Gavril. He really has. And, he's the only man to have gone 24 rounds now with Benavidez without being knocked down, let alone knocked out. So, credit to Ronald Gavril, but I'm very, very pleased for my man David Benavidez. I sent him a text, just congratulating him on his win, and he actually got back to me about 20 minutes after the fight. He probably still had his gloves on when he sent the text back to me. Really, really humble, nice young kid there. He is the youngest ever super middleweight world champion in the history of the sport. Unbelievable stuff. The main event on this one, again, a fight that I watched. Danny Garcia took on Brandon Rios. Danny Garcia now 34-1. Brandon Rios 34-4 with one draw. It seemed to be quite a good fight. Obviously, we all know that Brandon Rios is back with Robert Garcia, and Brandon Rios showed up in great shape. He gave Garcia lots of problems. He was getting off with his combinations, which I think was quite surprising. Garcia, obviously, he's a much fresher fighter. He's more so in his prime than Rios is. Nobody really gave Rios a chance. However, I said that Rios would probably lose on points, so I said Danny Garcia would win the fight on a decision. Ayaz, you went with Garcia to win on points also, and our listeners went with Garcia to win by knockout, and this is where they got the victory because Brandon Rios was knocked out in the 9th round. It was a fight where, like I say, there was a lot of back and forth. It was quite a close kind of fight. I'd say that, Garcia was definitely ahead. Again, some of the Garcia haters are really taking to Twitter saying that Rios was giving him a proper beating. I don't think that was the case. I think that, after 8 rounds, we're not going to score the 9th because that's when the knockout come, but I think it was probably something like 6-2 in terms of the round. So it wasn't like he was getting a boxing lesson from Rios, but, it was a good fight. Rios came to fight, and, based on that, I'm not quite sure. I mean, if he can stay in that kind of shape, maybe there's 1 or 2 other big fights out there, but, I didn't really give him a chance against Danny Garcia, to be honest. I think Danny Garcia had too much for him and was too fresh for him going into that fight. But well done to Garcia for getting the knockout. Obviously, it looked a beautiful shot. Brandon Rios, he got hit. And like I say, he jumped up again. He's got a lot of heart, that boy. Nobody's ever thrown that into question. And the referee decided to stop it. I think Rios probably could have carried on, but on paper, that's a great, that looks really good to stop Rios there, something that Manny Pacquiao couldn't do. So, credit to Danny Garcia on that one. Moving over now to the Don Haskins Convention Center in El Paso, Texas. 1 or 2 fights to mention on this bill also. Former world champion Austin Trout, he moved to 31-4 inside 35 fights. It was a unanimous decision win against Juan D. Angel. He was 20-7, now 20-8 with one draw. Tony Harrison was on the bill. He moved to 26-2, a TKO in round 5 against George Sosa, who's now 15-12 with one draw. No great fighter, to be honest, him. And a huge upset on this bill. Friend of the show, he was on last week. Thomas Williams Jr., 20-3 going in. He's now 20-4. He was knocked out in the 4th round. If I'm not mistaken, I think he was also down in round 2 once or twice. And he got knocked out by Humberto Velasco Torres, who nobody, to be honest, has heard of. I think he'd only beaten 5 fighters with winning records going into that fight. And he took on Thomas Williams Jr., who, he's a good fighter. He's a guy that obviously was coming off of 2 losses to Marcus Brown and Adonis Stevenson, but those fighters are, they're great fighters. Potential world level fighter in Marcus Brown, and obviously a world champion in Adonis Stevenson. So there was no real shame in losing the two fights, but losing to this guy here who nobody knows is, this is awful. So I'm not quite sure where Thomas Williams Jr. goes from here. He's just been served up nothing but bad. Like I said to him last week, how important is it that 2018 is your year? He said very, very important. And, he's been knocked out now 3 times in a row. And in that time, obviously, his role model and stepfather was killed in a tragic car accident. It's just an awful time for Thomas Williams Jr. He's a lovely fella, but I don't know. He's really got to rethink here, because that is the kind of loss that you can't come back from, to be honest. So I really feel for him. Humberto Velasco Torres now 19-1 with 1 draw. Also on this bill, Jennifer Han moved to 17-3 with 1 draw. It was an IBF World Female Featherweight title contest. A unanimous decision for Jennifer Han over Lisbeth Crespo, who's now 12-4. 10 2-minute rounds there in favour of Jennifer Han, a unanimous decision. Also on the bill, Caleb Plant moved to 17-0. It was a unanimous decision over Rogelio Porky Medina. Medina's proved 1 or 2 times that he's a tough guy. Even if he's overmatched, he will still take you the distance. His record now 38-9. And the main event in this one, Devon Alexander, 27-4, took on Victor Ortiz, 32-6 with 2 draws. Again, we predicted on this one, Ayaz. You actually went with Alexander to win by knockout. I went with Alexander on points. So did the listeners. Well, it was another draw to mess up our predictions here. It was a majority draw, this one. So 2 judges went with a draw. The other judge went with Victor Ortiz, which I found absolutely criminal, to be honest. Victor Ortiz certainly didn't win that fight. Devon Alexander boxed a pretty good fight, to be honest. I think it was probably something like maybe 8-4, maybe 7-5, but certainly you could no way say that it was those scores in the favour of Victor Ortiz. No way. He was chasing the fight from the first bell, to be honest. And he came forward a lot, but I don't think that you could... I just don't understand how you could say that the fight was close, or that you could ever say that the fight went to Victor Ortiz. I think that was terrible. And, it was looking like they were talking about Devon Alexander, if he won, perhaps taking on Errol Spence. I think that fight probably won't happen now. But yeah, all the very best to Devon Alexander. A big shame for him. Now 27-4 with 1 draw. Victor Ortiz 32-6 with 3 draws. I think that is it. Yeah, that's it for the reviewing. So we've gone over that as quick as possible. Sorry if it dragged on a little bit. Again, we like to visit all the venues around the globe. That is it for the reviewing. The last thing to do before we wrap up part 1 is to welcome our very first guest. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the undefeated former WBC Lightweight champion of the world, Mr. Omar Figueroa. Omar, welcome to the show.
How's it going, man? Thank you for having me.
It's all my pleasure, my friend. It's all my pleasure. So, Omar, we last spoke on the week of your last fight against Robert Guerrero. You'd obviously been out of the ring for over 18 months, and you got back in the ring at welterweight against Robert Guerrero, who, despite being past his best, he definitely comes to fight and can turn fights into real wars. However, you absolutely demolished him and became the first man to ever stop him. You knocked him out in the 3rd round. I've never seen you fight so aggressively as that fight also. Tell us, Omar, how did you assess your performance, and what did you make of that win, by the way?
Well, obviously, I was satisfied with the way I performed. I didn't really have, time to really fully be able to assess what I could have done or how the fight could have, progressed or anything. So it's really hard to assess my performance based off of, basically 1 round. Because the 1st round I took it off, I was just testing and see what he had, and the 2nd round is really when I started my fight. And well, obviously it should have ended in the 2nd round, but the ref let it continue, and the 3rd round was just more of the same.
And by the time your next fight rolls around, it would have been 9 months since the Guerrero win. Obviously, your upcoming fights against Adrien Broner at 140. You haven't weighed inside the 140 limit since the Daniel Estrada fight back in August 2014. So my first question on this fight, Omar, is who benefits more from the fact that the fight's at 140, yourself or Broner in your eyes?
I do.
Why is that?
Because I feel like I'm the bigger man, and I should have no problem making 140 when the time comes. The main thing is for me to be healthy, and that's one thing that we're working really hard on to achieve. And if I am healthy, then I shouldn't have any problems with the weight nor the fight.
And you yourself, of course, were a world champion at lightweight. Adrien Broner was a world champion at super feather, lightweight, super lightweight, welterweight. But most boxing fans believe yourself and Broner are not really at your best at welterweight. People believe that you're both better off at perhaps lightweight or even 140 maximum. Do you agree with that, or do you think it doesn't really matter?
It doesn't matter.
Anything else to add on that?
No, sir.
And also, Omar, what are your thoughts on Broner as a fighter? I know myself that you've wanted to fight him for a couple of years now. I remember the first time we ever spoke, you said that that's the guy you want, and it seemed to be quite a way away from happening. It's now happening. It's now finally here. But yeah, how would you sum up Broner as a fighter, and how excited are you to finally get him in the ring with you?
Well, I feel Broner is a great fighter. I mean, I feel like even though he lost his way a little bit, he got caught up in what boxing, brought to him. I feel that if he really focuses, he can be, the fighter that he used to be, at least when he was on top. He's lost to elite opposition, so I feel that I'm not taking him lightly, first and foremost. I'm not taking him lightly at all. I know what he's capable of. We've seen it. We've seen him at his best. We've seen him at his worst. And even after the beating he was taking with Maidana, he still put up a good fight and had Maidana hurt at the end and could have even, finished him off had he, tried harder or been more in shape, or maybe not have suffered as much as he suffered in the first few rounds. But we're preparing for a great fight. We know it's going to be a good one, and the fans will thoroughly enjoy this one for sure.
And obviously in Broner's last fight, he lost to Mikey Garcia. I remember speaking to Mikey Garcia on this show after that fight, and one thing he did tell me was that Broner can certainly punch. However, you've actually got a slightly higher knockout percentage than Adrien Broner. Do you believe that this fight, we may see a stoppage from either of you, or do you think it goes the distance? If I had to say so, I think it's probably a distance fight.
Oh, no, I'm definitely stopping him.
Oh, okay. I like that. Obviously, the fight's set for April 21st on Showtime. However, there hasn't yet been a venue confirmed for it. Do you know what cities are in the running to host the event, or are you totally unsure at this stage?
I have no idea, and it really doesn't matter. The ring is the same size no matter where we fight.
Yeah, no, fair enough. And also, I hate to bring attention to negativity, but I know for sure Adrien Broner, obviously he's been involved in a few things outside of the ring recently, for all kinds of rumours that I've heard, all sorts of unsavoury reasons. Something happened with him in a shopping mall, but I also heard that you'd perhaps been in some kind of trouble with the law. Is there any truth in that at all, Omar? And also, what was your reaction when you heard, that Adrien Broner had been arrested for what we've been told it was for?
Oh, I mean, yeah, that's definitely true. I'm not here to hide what I've done. I mean, it's out in the media anyway. I'm only human. We all make mistakes, I guess. And but yeah, no, I mean, some Broner doing something like that is obviously no surprise to anybody. I just hope he's able to get it together for the fight, and that we're both 100%, and that we give the fans what they deserve, which is obviously a good fight, a good show.
Yeah, we certainly hope so. And also, I just wanted to get your opinion on a couple of other fights. I remember when we last spoke, I think it was the last time we spoke, we were talking about the upcoming Canelo and Triple G fight. I remember you saying to me that you hoped it lived up to our very high expectations. It seemed to do so. It was a really good fight, but unfortunately, one or two strange scorecards made it a little bit negative. Obviously, the rematch is coming around second time round. A lot of people now are kind of favouring Canelo to win, whereas before everybody was well, not everybody, but most people were going with Golovkin. I think you said Golovkin as well. How do you see the rematch playing out, Omar?
I honestly didn't even watch the first one, so I can't say. I don't know how it went. I just hope it's another good fight.
Last question for you now, Omar. I just wanted to ask you, you kind of said it yourself, really. You said that you can see yourself stopping Adrien Broner. Can you narrow that down at all? Have you got any kind of prediction which part of the fight you can see the stoppage coming?
I don't think he'll make it past 6.
So you reckon a knockout before 6?
Yeah.
Okie dokie. And just before I let you go, Omar, if you've got any kind of message to send your UK fans, please just take it away. Say whatever you like.
Oh, of course. Always. Thank you for the support. I appreciate it. I hope one day I get to fight over there. That would be awesome. I've always wanted to fight overseas, and hopefully they get to see me live someday as well. Other than that, is just thank you for your support.
Yeah, and like I say, Omar, we really appreciate a good fighter, and you certainly are one. But listen, it's always a pleasure speaking with you, my friend. You know that. Thank you for your time. Best of luck for April 21st, and we'll catch up sometime after your victory.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay, now it's time for part 2 on this week's show. This part, of course, the news part. Let's go over to Ayaz with the latest news. Ayaz, take it away.
Andy Lee has retired from boxing.
Yeah, obviously Andy Lee was, a former world champion himself, a great fighter really up until the end. It was good that he didn't carry on too long. Hopefully this is a proper retirement. I don't really like to see people retire and then come back, but he kind of seemed to go out of the game at the right time. He didn't go on too long and lose fights that he wouldn't have lost in his prime kind of thing, and right up until the end, even the back end of his career kind of thing, he still had that huge one-punch finisher that he showed us many times. I mean, that fight in particular against John Jackson, where he was getting beat and he just found that absolute punch from the gods to completely knock him unconscious, was unbelievable. And he did it time and time again. Obviously, I remember when he knocked Peter Quillin down. I can't remember who else he fought recently around that same kind of time, and he completely beat them as well. But yeah, he showed us many fights over the years. A fantastic relationship he had and continues to have with the Stewart family. That, of course, the wife of Emmanuel Stewart, he's kept in contact with them, and he's one of boxing's good guys, Andy Lee, from what I'm told. I've never actually been fortunate enough to meet him, but all the very best to him. He's a great guy from what I've heard, and like I say, he's an Irish fighter with a huge punch, and we've got many of those. We've seen many over the years, and he was a cut above the rest, to be honest.
Jürgen Bremer has pulled out the fight against Callum Smith, and therefore Nikke Holskin will step in and fight Callum Smith.
Yeah, I mean, the bizarre thing about this is that it's actually going to still go ahead as a pay-per-view. I think it's £9.95, something like that. I think it's absolutely terrible. It's not Callum Smith's fault. That's what people have to forget. People are tagging all the Smith brothers in and giving them abuse and stuff like that. The last person's fault it is Callum Smith. I mean, Callum Smith, as I said, he's only fought one southpaw in his whole career. He was going to be taking on Jürgen Bremer. The one southpaw he fought was a guy who had a record of something like 15-3 with 2 draws. And, that guy took Callum Smith the distance, and obviously Callum Smith's a bit of a knockout artist, so I don't know if he gets on great with southpaws. And Jürgen Bremer's a world-level southpaw, so, I actually found that fight quite a hard fight. And, of course, Callum Smith would have been preparing for a southpaw the whole of camp, and now, I think it was on Tuesday, I think the fight fell through, so with 4 days to go, bang, he's in there with an orthodox fighter and a guy that apparently was a really good kickboxer or something like that. I don't know too much about him as a pro. I'm not going to check out his resume because I did it the other day and there wasn't any names on there that stood out to me. But like I say, it's completely, it's great that the World Boxing Super Series have got the reserves that can just jump in with a few days' notice. But the bad thing is that, the fans don't like to see that. So could it have been postponed? Possibly, because we're not quite sure what's happening with George Groves. Maybe they could have postponed this one, and then in that time, George Groves could have healed up and then got ready for the winner. Because hopefully, we don't see George Groves be pulled out of the final. Otherwise, the fans will go ballistic because Callum Smith's going to beat this guy on Saturday, and then he could be fighting in the final somebody who, again, we've never heard of. So, yeah, it's a shame for Callum Smith. He beat Eric Skoglund in the quarterfinals. Now in the semi-finals, through no fault of his own, he's now taking on this guy here. And I was going to do the prediction league for the Broner and Smith fight, but I think everybody is thinking that Callum Smith's going to knock this guy out. So, yeah, I mean, we're not going to do the prediction league. And, you know, the fight's still going ahead, but the most crazy thing ever is that the actual card is now happening again. It's going to be happening in Germany. This guy he's taking on is not even German. Obviously, it was going to be in Jürgen Bremer's backyard. Callum Smith is not German, obviously, so the card's in the wrong place at the moment. And from what I've seen, they haven't even confirmed the undercard yet, so it's all gone completely wrong for them. But the show still goes ahead, so I suppose a bit of credit on one hand, and you know a bit of disappointment on the other, I suppose. But yeah. Like I say, it's not Callum Smith's fault. We want him to win, and I'm sure he will win, and we will see him and George Groves in the final if they allow George Groves to actually compete in the final, because if they don't, it'll be a great shame, because there won't be no belt on the line, will there, in the final? So, yeah, we need to wait for George Groves, and it's just all gone wrong. But, you know, I'm happy to see Callum Smith in a fight anyway, of any magnitude. So, yeah, I'm happy about that, but that's about it. Any more news for us, Ayaz, at all?
Matchroom Boxing have announced a card called Straight Out Brooklyn, where it will be headlined by Danny Jacobs versus Matthysse Soleki, Katie Taylor versus Bustos, and Jarrell Miller versus Johan Duapas.
Yes, that card, of course, to take place on the 28th of April. Danny Jacobs in against a guy from Poland called Maciej Sulecki, who's 26-0. Quite a good fighter, by the way. He's only 28. He's not a big puncher, 10 knockouts. But yeah, this guy is quite a good fighter, so I'm quite looking forward to that one. I don't think it's a given, that fight at all. You know, Katie Taylor's on the undercard. It's good for her to go out in the States and get a win, like I suppose she's going to probably get. And the heavyweight fight on the undercard, Big Baby Miller against Johan Duapas. That's quite a good fight, obviously. Duapas has been an opponent, you know, most of his big fights of his career, but, you know, he always shows up. He's quite a tough fighter, so that should be quite good. Yeah, I mean, we'll obviously talk more in depth about this card when it happens, when it's closer to the time, obviously. It's an Eddie Hearn Matchroom USA bill, and yeah, you know, I'm looking forward to it. It should be quite good. It's a couple of days after my birthday, so yeah, hopefully it's a good one. Is that it for the news, Ayaz?
Yeah, that's it for the news.
Okay, thank you very much, Ayaz. Moving over now to the preview part of the show. We're going to start with a card that's happening later tonight over in the United States at the Fantasy Springs Casino in Indio, California, USA. Couple fights to mention on this bill. Hector Tanahara returns. He's back in action here. Manny Robles Jr., that's the son of the trainer Manny Robles. Manny Robles is a guy that trains quite a few guys, Michael Conlon being one of them. He's 14-0, by the way. He's in an 8-rounder against a guy who's 24-11. The top of the bill, though, for the WBO NABO featherweight title, Joseph Diaz, 25-0, takes on Victor Terrazas, who's 38-4 with 2 draws. That should be quite a good fight. Another step up for Joseph Diaz. I like what they're doing with him, but I do want to see him in with some of the guys that will give him problems, perhaps. Some of the bigger names in the featherweight division. I'd like to see maybe him in with Kid Galahad. I quite like that fight. I know that Barry Awad would go for that for sure. Moving over now to Germany, the fight that we mentioned there, Callum Smith, 23-0, takes on Nicky Holzken. I think that's how he said. He's 13-0 with 10 knockouts. He's 34 years of age. The fight's happening a week before his birthday. I mean, that can be a silly fact, and that can be quite a good fact. So, yeah, hopefully he's not going to be partying for that one, because we don't need that at all. He's coming off of a win against Viktor Polyakov, who's, you know, he's an okay fighter, I suppose. He's been quite toughly matched, but yeah, he beat him. He knocked him out in the second round, so I suppose that's quite impressive, to be honest, because Polyakov's only been knocked out the once, despite losing to a couple of prospects, not great fighters really. And also, again, we're really kind of interlocking here, but Polyakov got a win over Giovanni De Carolis, so you know, it kind of shows you his level. But yeah, it was a good win over him last time out. But aside from that win there, I don't really recognise any of the names on Holzken's resume, but he's well up for the fight, I'm guessing. I don't know much about him at all. I'm kind of clutching at straws here. He's Dutch, he's from the Netherlands, and you know, I hope he loses, to be honest, to Callum Smith. There's no undercard fights for that one published yet, so it's a bit of a shame there. Moving over now to the York Hall in Bethnal Green in London. This bill happening on Saturday. It's the Frank Warren bill. A couple fights to mention on this bill. This one was added quite late on. Nathan Gorman's on the bill. His record 11-0. His opponent yet to be announced. Also on the bill, Hamza Shiraz in his second pro outing. It's a 4-rounder, but his opponent's yet to be announced. Harvey Horn gets out in his second pro contest. He takes on Patrick Bartos. Umar Sadiq 1-0 takes on my favourite tough journeyman Adam Jones, 7-29 with 6 draws. That's a 4-rounder there. That's a risky fight, by the way. Ryan Garner's on this bill. He's looking to move to 7-0. He's in a 4-rounder against Lesfer Cantillano. Boy Jones Jr. 14-1 with 1 draw takes on Ronaldo Mora, 7-31 with 1 draw. If I'm not mistaken, I think that guy may have took on Zelfa Barrett. I'm not quite sure. Archie Sharp, good friend of mine, he's on the bill, 11-0. His opponent yet to be announced. He's in an 8-rounder. I'd like to see him do the rounds here. A really impressive fighter, by the way, Archie Sharp. I'm hoping that they show his fight on TV, because boy oh boy can he fight. Super talented. Also on this bill, Daniel Dubois in his 7th pro contest. He fights for the Southern Area heavyweight title against the undefeated D.L. Jones, who is 8-0 with 1 draw. I think D.L. Jones, even though he's 8-0, I don't think he's knocked anybody out, and you know he's obviously a heavyweight, so I don't think he's the most powerful puncher, whereas it's the complete opposite with Daniel Dubois. Boy oh boy can he hit. I'm expecting another early knockout for him. Also on the bill, Zelfa Barrett, 19-0, fights for the vacant IBF East and West Europe super featherweight title against Ronnie Clark, 20-4 with 2 draws. Ronnie Clark's a Scottish fighter. I remember he gave Martin J. Ward quite a good fight at the Wembley Arena, if I'm not mistaken. I think that was back in November of 2016. I'm not checking that, by the way. I'm gonna check it in a second to make sure I've got that right. But I think, if my memory serves me right, that is where they boxed. But yeah, Ronnie Clark definitely took on Martin J. Ward. I think he even put Martin J. Ward down as well, so he can fight. And I remember when they read the decision, all these Scottish fans were throwing beer cups into the ring. So yeah, all the very best to Zelfa Barrett. I mean, this is a first, for me anyway, this is his first kind of opponent that I really know quite well. So I'm looking forward to see how he gets on, really, because everybody's saying he's the goods, and we're going to see here. I think he's got a bit of a padded record now, Zelfa Barrett. It seems a shame to say so, but he's going to be 20-0, hopefully, if he wins this. And you know, on his resume so far, there's only one name that I recognise. And the main event here, Anthony Yarde, 14-0, defending his WBO European light heavyweight title and his WBO Intercontinental light heavyweight title against Tony Avalanche, who's 26-9 with 2 draws. Tony Avalanche, a guy that, I mean, again, it's a kind of opponent that is on that same kind of level, I suppose, as some of his past opponents, Anthony Yarde. He hasn't really got the name Tony Avalanche, and of his 9 losses, he's only been knocked out twice. He's 33, he's from France. I mean, he went the distance with 22-0 Dominic Bozell. Dominic Bozell was a prospect, but he was quite a good fighter. Bozell won that fight, but yeah, he went the distance with him. Looking at his resume here, Tony Avalanche, like I say, he got knocked out by Jürgen Bremer in the second round by a body shot. That was back in 2013. He's had a couple of losses on a split decision. He lost to Edward Gutnech. That's the guy that George Groves put in a coma. He actually lost a split decision to him. And the other time he got knocked out was back in 2007. So he's only been knocked out once in the last 10 years. And I suppose on paper that sounds quite good. He also lost a points decision to Christopher Rebras, who we all know very well. So he's mixed it at a decent-ish level. He hasn't really won at that level, to be honest. And I don't expect him to win here. I think Yarde gets another explosive-looking knockout. I'd like to see Anthony Yarde stepped up a little bit as well. But moving over now to the Doncaster Dome in Doncaster, Yorkshire, United Kingdom. Couple fights to mention on this one. Dex Spellman, 11-0, takes on Scott Westgarth. That should be a decent fight. Dex Spellman's a guy that's, of course, a light heavyweight on the domestic scene. A lot of people saying he's quite good. He's up there, in some people's minds, with Anthony Yard, Frank Buglioni, Jose Burton, those types of guys. Also on this bill, Andy Townend, 20-4. He's got a big fight in a couple of weeks. Can't remember who it's against now, but he takes on William Warburton, another one of my favourite journeymans. That's an 8-rounder there. And the interesting fight on this bill, former footballer turned boxer Curtis Woodhouse, 24-7, takes on John Wayne Hibbert, 18-5. That should be a really good fight. I'm actually backing Hibbert to get the win there. That one, of course, is a Steffi Ball Promotions card. Moving over now to the Forum in Inglewood, California, USA. Couple fights to mention. Who is on this bill? Who's on this bill? A few title fights. We've got Brian Viloria, 38-5, fighting for the vacant WBA World Flyweight title against Artem Dalakian. I don't know too much about him, to be honest, but for the IBF World Flyweight title, Donny Nietes defending the belt, 40-1 with 4 draws. He takes on Juan Carlos Reveco, 39-3. That should be a good bang up there. And Wisaksil Wangek, also known as Saw Rungvisai, he puts his WBC World Super Flyweight title on the line, the belt that he ripped away from Chocolatito Roman Gonzalez. His record, by the way, 44-4 with 1 draw. He takes on Juan Francisco Estrada, 36-2. We were hoping that Cal Yafai would be on this bill, but unfortunately he didn't fancy it. I'm not saying that's because he's worried or scared of fighting anybody, but I don't think the numbers were right for him. But it would have been good to see him on this bill. A few fantastic fights on that bill. I can't wait to see Rungvisai in there once again. I'm backing him to get the win. He's one of my favourite fighters now, especially in the Asian region. Also, moving over now to the final bill to mention. This one happening this Sunday, which is Sunday the 25th of February. It's happening at the Victoria Warehouse Hotel in Manchester, Lancashire, United Kingdom. It's an Eddie Hearn show. It's going to be on Sky. It's not a fantastic bill. It's a little bit average, this one, but a few names on it. Let's mention them here. Marcus Morrison, 15-2. He's in a fight here. It doesn't say how many rounds, but it's to be announced. His opponent, Hosea Burton, gets out once again. His record 20-1. His opponent yet to be announced. Natasha Jonas is in a fight here. She's 4-0. Her opponent's yet to be announced, but I think it's going to be however many rounds it is, I think it's going to be 3-minute rounds, so shout out to Natasha Jonas. Kes Ashfaq makes his debut here in a 4-rounder. His opponent yet to be announced. Jordan Gill, 18-0, takes on Jason Cunningham. Jason Cunningham, we were talking about him a couple of weeks ago. He's the guy that fought Reece Bellotti recently, and he lost in the 6th round by a knockout. He also took on Ben Jones, and he won that fight via split decision on points. So Jason Cunningham, quite a biggish name, and obviously Jordan Gill in his proper first test here. Jordan Gill under the tutelage of the master guru himself, Mr. Dave Caldwell. That's a 10-rounder there. And the main event here, Lewis Ritson, 13-0, defending his British Lightweight title for the very first time after taking it away from Robbie Barrett. I quite like the look of Lewis Ritson, to be honest. I know that his manager or his main sponsor or something had like a really small wager bet that he would go undefeated all the way up to winning the British title, and he cashed out for something like 200 and something thousand pounds. So unbelievable stuff there, because it got to the actual fight night and he wasn't too confident. So if he was to win the fight, Lewis Ritson, he'd have won like double the money, but he wasn't too sure if Lewis Ritson was going to beat Robbie Barrett, so he decided to cash out. But he still got over 200 grand, so credit to Lewis Ritson's manager. I don't think he wanted to tell him that until after the fight had been completed, but he was kicking himself afterwards because Lewis Ritson won the fight pretty easy. But yeah, he's a fighter that I'm looking forward to seeing what he's all about. 13-0 there. Lewis Ritson takes on Joe Murray, 23-2. Joe Murray, very, very tough fighter, certainly will come to fight, and that's quite a hard first offence, to be completely honest. So credit to Lewis Ritson for taking it. But that really wraps up the previewing. We've done the news, we did the reviewing, we brought you the first guest. The last thing to do, of course, before we wrap up part 2 is to welcome our second and final guest. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the outright British welterweight champion, Mr. Bradley Skeete. Bradley, welcome to the show, mate.
How you doing, Joe? You good, man?
Yes, my man. All good, all good. How are you?
Yeah, buzzing now. Got the news I've been waiting for, so all good. I'm buzzing.
Excellent, man, excellent. So obviously, Bradley, we last spoke back in July. It was the week of the Dale Evans fight. I was there ringside for the fight. You put on another boxing clinic. I've been waiting to get you back on the show since then, but unfortunately, as you know, you've had a few misfortunes. It's took this long to actually nail down a fight. Firstly, though, before we get on to that fight, did you want to say a couple words on the Dale Evans win?
Yeah, it was a good win. Obviously, I won my British title outright, something I set out to do for like, it was a boyhood dream of mine, and I finally got it done. The performance, I wouldn't say it was one of my best ones, but Dale Evans is a strong fighter, come forward, aggressive fighter. He gave me a good fight, and I won it comfortably. Really, I didn't really engage too much, just won it on my jab really, and pleased to get the win, pleased to get my belt outright, and ready to move on now.
And obviously, as we say there, you won the British title outright. Are you still the reigning champion, or did you have to vacate at all?
No, still the champ, man, still the champ.
Brilliant. So obviously you did have one fight set up for February 10th, but the opponent pulled out. How frustrating was that, Bradley? Because I know that you were quite annoyed that you didn't get that shot that Corcoran got against Jeff Horn, and then obviously it was kind of like a keep busy fight, but then even that fell through. It was like an extra kick in the nuts kind of thing.
Yeah, the whole situation has been frustrating, to say. Like, I've not boxed since July. Obviously, there was talk of the Jeff Horn fight. I agreed all terms. It looked like we were set to fight. I was just waiting on a contract then for him to look elsewhere and then go ahead and fight Gary Corcoran. That was hard to take, sort of thing. But it's boxing. Got over it. Then obviously Frank had a big show in December. I didn't get put on that show. That was frustrating. Then obviously the show in February was looking at getting a good, meaningful fight, a world-ranked fighter. Then Laszlo Toth, no disrespect, wasn't the fight I wanted, but it was a fight. It was going to get me out, and then that fell through, and that show got cancelled. So it's just been frustrating, just so frustrating. I've been in the gym, I've been training. I want a meaningful fight. That's all I want. I want to mix at world level, want a meaningful fight. And now, that fell through in February. But now I've been put forward to fight for the vacant European title against a good fighter, so unbeaten fighter. So man, I just grab it, gonna grab it with both hands and crack on.
Yeah, absolutely. So as we say there, you were supposed to be fighting at the Copper Box on February 10th. You will now be fighting in Spain on March 24th in Bilbao for, as you said there, the EBU European title that's vacant at the moment. How did this opportunity come about, Bradley? And was it a fight that you actually wanted, or was it kind of one of those fights that was just there?
Do you know what? After becoming British champion, the natural route to go is European level and then move on to world level. But no disrespect, domestic level, I stuck around a bit longer than what I should have. But it was my own selfish reasons. I wanted to win that belt outright. I've done it. To be honest, I see myself beyond European level, because I go back to Sam Egerton having the European title, and I beat him well. So I put myself beyond European level. So, but I wanted to mix at world level and then mix at that sort of high level, and then get good, meaningful fights at that level. Then hopefully challenge for a world title. But I'm in a difficult division. The 147 division is packed with elite level world champions. So I know I'm not going to get a look in anytime soon. So for me to fight at European level now and get this European title and then move on to world level, it's perfect for me at this moment in time, because at the minute I ain't getting the fights. So I think this will be perfect for me. He's a good fighter. He's unbeaten. He's strong. So why not? I just thought, you know what? Let's go and do this. He was set to fight a French guy, but the French guy pulled out of the fight. And then I got the call and said, you want to fight for the European title? He's in Spain. I said, yeah, let's go. Book the flights. Let's do it.
And obviously this guy, before I try and pronounce his name, Brad, do you want to have a crack before me?
I just call him by his first name, Kerman.
All right, so this guy's name is Kerman Lejarraga. That's how I think it may be said.
Yeah.
He's
That's
an
it. You said it. Oh, man, you had the roll of the tongue and everything.
Hey, there you go, mate. You know me, versatile. And he's obviously an unbeaten Spanish fighter. He's 24-0 with 19 knockouts. He's world ranked with a WBA and WBC. Do you know much more about him, Bradley? Because to be honest, I haven't seen anything of him on video at all.
Not really. I've seen a couple. There's a couple on YouTube. I just know he's strong, he's tough, he's game. But to be honest, looking through his record, he hasn't really been in with anyone decent. He's not really boxed out of Spain, from what I know. He's young, he's game. He's gonna be hungry. He's not well ranked for no reason. He obviously got good ranking, so it's a fight I need. It's a fight that's gonna whet my appetite. It's a fight I'm gonna get up for. It's in his backyard. He's unbeaten, so it's got the mix there to be a good fight.
Is that a little bit of a worry, Brad, going and travelling to Spain? I don't think it's got the best reputation for, having the best scorecards at sometimes. And correct me if I'm wrong, but have you boxed abroad before? I can't remember. I should have checked before I got you on.
Not as a pro, no. This is my first time abroad. But do you know what? It's a boxing ring at the end of the day, and I thrive on it. I went up to Birmingham to beat Sam Egerton in his backyard to win the belt. I thrive on it. It's going to be hostile. The crowd's not going to be on my side. But do you know what? I love it. That's what I want. I want to go there and I want to shut them up. I want to bring that belt home, and it's just going to make me more determined to go out there and do a good job on it. And
I don't believe that you've got any common opponents with this guy, but one thing I do want to point out is this guy that you're going to be fighting here, Kerman. I know that he fought Denton Vassell. He knocked out Denton Vassell in the 4th round, which was quicker than Frankie Gavin and Sam Eggington could do it. That's just one fact I want to throw out for the listeners that may not know. One other thing, Bradley, will it be shown on Box Nation, this fight, at all?
I'm not too sure, to be honest. I've not heard anything yet, but I don't see why not. I don't see why not. I think even if it gets recorded and shown at a later date, or if it gets recorded live, I'm not too sure yet. But hopefully, yeah.
Yeah, hopefully. I know it clashes though with the Dillian White and Lucas Brown card at the O2 that Eddie Hearn's got on. So I know that they're, both going up at the same time is obviously quite a risky thing. But do you know yet when you'll be flying out to Spain at all, Brad? Will it be the week of the fight, before that at all?
So I'll be over there next week for a couple of days, and then I'll be over there on the start of fight week, I guess. And be there for the week, and then get the fight done, and then bring that belt home.
Excellent, my man, excellent. Right, coming down to the last couple questions. I know for a fact you must have been watching Groves and Eubank on the weekend. What did you make of the fight, Brad, and who did you think would win going into the fight?
Yeah, it was a great fight. It was a good fight. I picked George Groves to win the fight. I said it from the start that he'd win. You just got to look at the experience George Groves got. He's been at elite level for a long, long time. He's done it the hard way. He's had his upsets in the past, and I just couldn't see what Eubank was going to do, what was going to trouble Groves, to be honest. He was the bigger man. Everything was going in Groves' favour, to be honest. I couldn't see past him not winning, and he obviously put on a good performance, and it proved it. I think Eubank didn't have a plan B. He just done the same thing from round 1 to 12, really. And it just wasn't good enough to beat George Groves.
And Horn versus Crawford, 3 weeks after your fight. Does Horn have any kind of chance in that one at all, Brad, for you?
Not a chance. Not a chance. Listen, he's a tough game. He's done what he's done, but I think his time's up now. Definitely, his time's up. Crawford's going to take that belt, and he's going to be hard to beat at 147. He cleaned up at 140, but at 147 he's going to be hard to beat.
And I want to ask you this also, Bradley. If Horn does lose to Crawford on April 14th, like we all think he will, that will mean that Crawford will have the WBO, Errol Spence will have the IBF, Keith Thurman will have the WBC and WBA Super belts there. Who would you say is the weakest champion out of those three there? Because they're all brilliant fighters.
They're all elite level champions. But it sounds a bit disrespectful to say the weakest one, but I'd say it would be Thurman, where he's been inactive for so long with his injury. So looking at them three, I'd say you've got to put Spence at the top of the pile. To be honest, he's proven at 147. Crawford, he's 140, but he hasn't yet boxed at 147. So
true, yeah.
We'll see how he deals with Horn, which I'm sure he will. And then, but Thurman, I'd say he's the weaker one because obviously he's been out inactive. He's not really boxed for a couple of years, about a year. So I'd say he's the weakest one, to be honest.
I know that we've got the regular WBA champ, newly crowned, is Lucas Matthysse as well. I suppose he's in there probably, that's a fight
I'd look at.
Say that again?
Definitely. That's a fight I'd look at, definitely. I'd like that fight, the Matthysse fight.
I'd love that fight. I mean, obviously we saw he didn't really have it all his own way until he got the knockout of that guy he fought for the vacant belt, So that'd be a brilliant fight for you. Yeah,
definitely. I think my style will gel with his. He's a strong, and again, strong puncher. He's got that knockout power, but I just think my style will be all wrong for him.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to see that fight. I really would. Jesus Christ, it's getting me excited just thinking about it, Brad. Just before I let you go, Brad, anything that you want to tell our listeners at all?
Yeah, no, just thanks for the support. It's been frustrating. Not getting that out and being active. But hopefully go over to Spain, get this European title, bring it home, and then get some good defences, and then crack on and get that world title fight.
Absolutely, my man, absolutely. All right, listen, Bradley, it's always a pleasure, mate. You know that. Best of luck for March 24th, and we'll catch up sometime after, I'm sure.
Thank you, Joe. I appreciate that, bro.
Okay, and this wraps up episode 123 of the BoxHard Podcast. I've been your host, Joey Kosuman. Ayaz Sumra has been Ayaz Sumra. A big thank you to our two guests on this week's show, the former WBC Lightweight World Champion, Mr. Omar Figueroa, and the current outright British, soon-to-be EBU European Champion, Mr. Bradley Skeete. The Prediction League currently stands at 25 points for you, the listeners, 23 points for Ayaz, and I'm way at the back with just 17 points. Thank you once again for listening. Enjoy your weekends, people, and we will see you next week.